Hi, I'm Spencer Gordon with Perfect Circle Renewable Energy. We make biodiesel fuel from waste vegetable oil that comes out of restaurants and meat fryers. We have a 1,400-gallon waste vegetable oil collection truck here. This is running probably 3 days a week at the least. And we fill it with the restaurant grease, and then we put it into our 1,200-gallon waste oil settling tank over here. The settling process is pretty simple. We heat this tank to 130 degrees, and the water is heavier than the oil. It falls to the bottom of the tank along with the solids. Then we drain the water and solids over into this 250-gallon schmutz tank. After settling the oil, we put it into our filtration process. The filtration process is essentially a 275-gallon tank with a centrifugal pump that runs a 1-micron centrifuge that spins out any residual solids that are left over from the settling process. After we've done that for about 30 to 45 minutes, we use this bag filter and filter housing to filter it down again to less than 500 microns, and it goes into this 275-gallon tank where the oil is stored until it goes into our reactor. In the waste vegetable oil holding tank, the oil is put into our 250-gallon universal reactor. There's a couple different functions of this reactor. One is it's actually where the reaction occurs, where the biodiesel is made and the glycerin is separated from the biodiesel. So the initial stage is to load the reactor with the chemicals, methanol and potassium hydroxide. At that point, the reaction occurs within 2 hours. The glycerin settles out in about 6 to 8 hours and is drained into another tank. Glycerin periodically has to be loaded back into our reactor about every 3 batches so that we can distill the alcohol out of it, and it can be used in other processes such as cosmetics manufacturing, animal feed, or even composting. After the alcohol has been distilled out of the biodiesel, it's ready for the wash step. These wash tanks have 3 different functions: washing, settling, and drying. The wash occurs in a fine spray. As the water falls down through the biodiesel, it gathers any residual potassium and forms soap, which ends up in the bottom of the tank, as you can see. The next step is to dry the fuel, which takes a 3-part process. One is blowing hot air into the tank. The next is bubbling air up through the bottom of the tank, and then also circulating the fuel through a 1-inch line that sprays fuel against the sidewalls of the tank and creates a lot of agitation. All of this is so that the water will evaporate into the air and be carried out through this ventilation duct up here. At the end of this process, after 24 hours, you have almost finished biodiesel. It has to pass through one more step. After the fuel has been dried, pass it through this green little fella over here, ion exchange column. This is filled with a bead resin and is really a redundant polishing step. It ensures that our fuel has no residual chemicals in it once it passes into our terminal tank. The terminal tank is where the fuel goes into our delivery truck. The entire process of making biodiesel fuel takes about 4 days. The biodiesel can be run as a diesel fuel alternative in any diesel vehicle without modification. It burns 75% cleaner than diesel fuel, is non-carcinogenic, and extends the engine life of your vehicle. You might ask yourself, how much energy does it take to produce 1 gallon of biodiesel? Actually, for every 1 unit of energy in, biodiesel produces 3 units of energy. One way at Perfect Circle that we increase our energy output and our efficiencies in our process is by using waste vegetable oil, glycerin, and unusable biodiesel to heat the tanks in our process with this 200,000 BTU boiler. In other words, 50% of the energy we use to produce our biodiesel comes from the process itself. Thanks for watching. It's time to go pump some grease.